everyone, my name is Delaney Goodwin. I'm the Associate Director of Conscious Business Strategy here at Channel Factory. Today I'm sitting down with Dr. Dan Reidenberg of the Mental Health Coalition to discuss the Safe Online Standards. What the Safe Online Standards are, why they matter, and how they're designed to help everyone make informed decisions when it comes to online safety and youth mental health. Dr. Dan, thank you for sitting down with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing and the good work that you do for the community, for the world. Your business practices are really respected and admirable because you give back. You're very conscious about who you partner with and what you do, and you try to make a difference in the world. So we're incredibly grateful for all that you do.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. To start us off, can you please talk to us about the Mental Health Coalition, explain what the Safe Online Standards are, what gap they're designed to address in today's landscape? Just give us a big overview of the whole project, please.
Sure, happy to. So the Mental Health Coalition was founded by Kenneth Cole, a fashion designer, philanthropist, an activist who really does genuinely care about mental health, and he cares about kids, but he cares about everybody and their mental health and their well-being. The Mental Health Coalition is a collaborative. It's a coalition of now it's almost 50 of the nation's largest nonprofit organizations that work in the mental health space. And the idea behind the Mental Health Coalition is when you bring everybody together, you can have a larger voice. Yeah, you can reduce duplication of services. You can amplify things in ways that you can't alone. And Kenneth has a great ability to be able to catalyze people and convene people, and he's a great motivator. So bringing all of the different nonprofits together really allows for something that's very unique. We don't really have anything else like this in the country. And so the coalition comes together. They share messages of each of the other organizations and what they're doing throughout the year. The coalition puts on different programs. For example, there's a well-being at work program. It's all about how you can have mental health and mental wellness in the workplace. The first Tuesday of every December is Well-Being at Work Day, and hundreds of businesses around the country are involved with that. So there's a lot of things that happen throughout the year to really try to promote mental health and well-being and help people understand that you don't have to be afraid of it. It shouldn't be stigmatized any longer, and that everybody moving together in the same direction helps people get to the care that they need. One of those programs happens to be the Safe Online Standards, or SOS program that we're here talking about. The Safe Online Standards was really an idea that I had, that I came up with at the end of 2022. And at a very high level, it dawned on me that young people and parents had no way of knowing which social media platforms or gaming platforms were safe, or how safe they were to be on. I thought of movie ratings, and in some ways that's a really great analogy, and in some ways it's not, because movie ratings are pretty static. You go to a movie and there it is, versus the social media world, it's content that's put on by people, and it changes its dynamics. So it's not a perfect analogy, but for me, it originally came this idea that we need a way to help young people and parents and others, policymakers. We need people that are working in the business area. We need people in the advertising industry. We need healthcare professionals. We need educators to all have a better sense of how these platforms should be rated. So that's what we embarked on over the last couple of years.
Amazing. So it sounds like SOS is meant to bring clarity to a space that's difficult to navigate. It's difficult for advertisers to navigate. It's difficult for policymakers to navigate, and then parents and then youth as well. So I know that SOS covers a number of different areas across policy, platform functionality, governance, transparency, digital literacy even. Why was it important to take this kind of comprehensive systems level approach rather than focusing on one single issue? Tell me a bit about your methodology.
That's a great question. So at a very high level, what we did is after we finished the ecosystem assessment, looked around the world, and we did a lot of focus groups, and we had a lot of listening sessions to get ideas on what people were thinking was important. We went to youth and we said to youth, if something was going to tell you that a platform was safe, what would that mean to you? What would it entail, that a definition of safety? How would you know that something was safe, and what would you want it to be? We then convened experts from around the world, and we brought them together, and we looked at all of the research out there in the world on this. We looked at what was best practices in developing a set of standards, because to be able to get to a rating, you needed to have a set of standards that could be scored. So we brought together experts, we looked at all the research, and literally the experts came up with hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of things that should be considered to help protect youth. All of that boiled down into these 5 areas, the ones that you mentioned: policy, governance and transparency, content, functionality, digital literacy, and well-being. These were the areas that all of the experts felt we had enough data and research on, even though there's not a tremendous amount yet in the industry around the world, but we had enough in these areas, and we had enough clinical and academic experience and set of expertise to be able to say, these are the main areas that a company really should be paying attention to if it wants to protect youth's mental health, their well-being, and specifically around suicide, self-harm, and eating disorder issues. So within that, after we came up with hundreds and hundreds of ideas, we received International IRB, Institutional Review Board, approval to do a study, a Delphi study. And a Delphi study is done on novel concepts when you're looking on how to rank and prioritize and eliminate things. And we ultimately ended up with 24 different standards that fell into those 5 different categories. During that process, we went to a second round of things with the experts where they rank ordered them and tried to figure out which needed to be higher priority, which were deemed essential. And so we gave them a higher threshold for getting through, for scoring purposes. After we had figured out that we had these 5 categories, we had 24 standards, and we knew which ones were going to be rated higher, then we needed to come up with a scoring system. We used the B Corp assessment, which is used by tens of thousands of companies around the world, as a model for determining how to score this and how to develop these assessments. We looked at how the Joint Commission on hospitals and healthcare organizations, we looked at CARF for rehabilitation facilities, we looked at all the different kinds of systems out there for standards and came up with a scoring system. In that scoring system, we now can have a company do a self-assessment, and then they give us all of this backup documentation and evidence to support why they think that they might have these things in place. And then we have independent experts around the world that actually go through and do the scoring. From that, we come up with a rating system.
Amazing. So you're doing your own homework, but you're not grading your own homework. Okay. I think safety is different to everybody, right? If you ask me what a safe online environment looked like when I was 16 or 17, I might have had a really wild idea of what that looked like, or a really uninformed idea of what that looks like. So I think at a really practical level, SOS, how is it intended to help parents, platforms, policymakers, young people make more informed decisions about youth online safety if everyone's interpretation of safety is different?
Well, so that's a great question, because in some ways we need both the companies that are building these platforms to do better in these areas, right? Develop safer products that have features and functionality that protect users. But we also have the public, all of us that are interacting and using these platforms. We need to be better educated as to what this means, and we need to have more conversations. We need parents to be able to have conversations with their children about how they use them, and parents need to have better advice on how they set different settings and how they work through amounts of time that kids are on the platforms. So there's this combination, right? So the idea here behind SOS is that now that we have these standards, we can give them to the technology companies, and we can say these are the things that the best evidence and the best experts around the world, informed by users in all ages and all demographics, are telling us this is what would help us feel more safe. Do you have policies in place that protect us around user safety? Do you have policies on advertising for young people? 13 to 19 years of age, for example, because that's how SOS is built? Do you have policies on advertising and what they're fed? Do you have policies on the research that you do or that you can provide to the public for independent research? So those are examples of standards that come in that section. And of course, out of all of these 24 standards, these kinds of things can inform the companies on how to build the products better and how to monitor them and make sure that as they create new things, that they fit within these standards. At the same time is the general public. And as you said, everybody sees safety a little bit differently, not just by age, but by person and by where you live in the world and by the kinds of things that you think are safe. For example, young people, especially teenagers, are more risk takers, right? They're more impulsive and they're more willing to engage in things than some of us that are a little bit older. So they're willing to look at things, content, for example, that for some of them, it just doesn't bother them at all. They can look at it and they can just scroll right past it. For some of the other youth, they look at it and they're really distressed by it. Whereas you can take that same content and give it to an adult. An adult, most adults would say that's pretty bad content. You really don't want to look at that. So we need to help young people, and SOS can help with this, right? It can give users a chance to understand, hey, there might be suicide content on these platforms. There might be content around self-harm or eating disorders that you should be aware of. Not as like a warning or content warning, things like that, but we want them to know that this is the kind of thing that the platforms might have on that's working behind the scenes. It may not filter it out the way that we would hope it would. Those might score lower in their rating system. And so if a company gets a lower score, we've developed a color coding for the rating system. A blue would be if they scored above the threshold of the highest level. Yellow is more of a caution. You should be a little bit more careful about what you're looking at because more of this kind of really harmful content or potentially harmful content for you could get through. And a red would be, we really want to advise you that it might not be safe for a young person to use this platform because they don't have a lot of protections in place, for example, to keep you from seeing or being exposed to this. And that might be once, or it might be the frequency of it. It might be the type of content that you're seeing on there. It might be what they're doing with the content and how the feeds work, the algorithms work to give you more content, right? And so you can, we've all heard about the rabbit hole and things that happen to content. If you start seeing depressing content or self-harm content, more and more of that appears on them on their feeds. So we want them to know this and make some decisions based on their own developmental level, their own ability to handle different types of content like that. Some kids, for example, can really handle a lot of scary things, really kind of dark content, even dark humor, whereas some others are far more sensitive, not just by age, but just by their background. So we want them to use these ratings to inform themselves on whether or not they should be on the platform, how they should be on the platform, how long they should be on the platform, what they should be putting on the platform, what the kinds of content they should be engaging with. And that comes to them and to their parents and to educators to give them advice on.
So really, it's a decision-making tool, especially for young people, right? I think something that I've heard a lot about and something that people seem to be debating is whether social media should be banned for young people or if we should help them become more resilient and show up in online spaces and just be more educated, right? I think most people, if you see a blue rating or a yellow or what have you, even if you proceed with moving forward and showing up on those platforms and engaging on those platforms, at least if you walk into those situations knowing, okay, well, this has been, rated a yellow, I'm going to proceed with caution, you can at least be more informed, and then you become a more resilient young person, and you might be exposed to X, Y, and Z, but at least you have a sense of what your experience looks like before you proceed, right?
That's exactly right. You have more agency, you have more autonomy, and you have more ability to make decisions and good decisions for yourself and for your child and for those that you're working with. We know that without any guidance like this, nobody has any idea about the safety of these platforms. Now, all platforms are going to have risk. Every car has risk. Every bicycle has risk. Every playground has risk. No matter what safety things are in place, signs or information or people watching you and supervising you using these kinds of things. Food has risk. Everything really has risk no matter what we put in place. So we're trying to say that even if it scores above the threshold and gets a blue, yes, be careful. Be thoughtful as you use these platforms. There might be some risk involved with it, but these companies are doing more to try to help you. Whereas if it's a yellow, we really think people should be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more thoughtful. Maybe they should talk with a trusted adult, a parent, a caregiver, or a teacher, somebody that can give them some guidance on whether or not it might be safe or not. And a red, obviously, very similar to a stoplight, would be, you know what, maybe you should stop and think first before you actually engage with this. I'll tell you a couple of interesting things that happened in the developing of this. We originally started with what this image was that I had talked about. What is the ratings image going to look like? And it was a green thumbs up. And then we had a yellow thumb sideways and a red thumbs down. And we thought this is great because it's connected to social media and technology. And some kids really liked it. But what ended up happening is the more and more feedback we got on it was a green thumbs up, you're seeing it everywhere. And it became so commonplace, it was like, well, if they see a green thumbs up, boom, it's okay, go ahead. Just go forth. No worries. Don't worry at all. So we decided to move away from the thumb image, and we tested out literally hundreds of different kinds of images. And then what came back to us was the green was the problem. We think normally of green, yellow, and red in terms of green. Go ahead, just go right through the stoplight. Don't worry, right? There's protections in place. Everybody else is going to just pay attention to that. Well, we really think that if it's any platform has some level of risk, right? And to become more resilient, to become more informed, we don't want you to just go forth. We want you to stop and think for a second, be careful, be knowledgeable, and then proceed carefully. As opposed to the yellow is really, hey, you do have to be cautious here because there's less things in place that can protect you from the things that really could cause some harm to you in terms of your mental health and your well-being. So all of these things are really help to design building that self-resilience and ability, because technology isn't going away. More and more people are using it. It's not going to stop. Just banning it completely is not something that I think is a great idea, because we already know, just even in a couple of weeks into the ban in Australia, the kids are finding their way around it. And what's even worse is that they're going to some other places that are not at all regulated and much darker and much more risky. I think it's also important here to bring in the advertisers and the advertising industry and the ad agencies, because these ratings can help them as well. I have long believed, since I came up with this idea, that advertisers and brands are concerned about their customers, their consumers. If I think of, for example, Disney as a company, Disney, right? They really care about their customers, and their customers are kids, right? They're kids who they want to come to their theme parks, and of course parents, because parents are the ones to get them there. So if Disney, just as an example, they're not part of this, they've not been involved in anything, I'm just using it as an example. If Disney cares about their customers and Disney is advertising on one of these social media platforms and their ads are being exposed or seen really next to some really harmful or risky kind of content, I think that brand would want to know that. I think that they would want to be concerned about that. And I think agencies that are intermediaries in pushing different companies and how they do their ad spends and how they design things and how they get them placed on these platforms would be equally concerned about that. So I think the ad industry can really benefit from knowing which of these platforms has more safety precautions and measures taken to protect their brands.
Absolutely. So 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up. Around adoption and support of the safe online standards, what does that look like? It sounds to me like, obviously everyone has a role to play, right? There's an advertiser piece, there's a platform piece, there's a user and consumer piece. What can we all do to better support this and advocate for it?
Yeah, good question. So when it comes to the companies, we had a first cohort of companies that were part of this, and they had no involvement or influence in the development of the standards or anything like that. They were updated about what the standards are all along. And we have some of those companies that are going to go through the process right away and be part of the launch process. And so we want as many companies as possible, not just this first cohort of companies, but we want all of the tech companies, large and small, new companies that are coming about, to use these standards and go through the process once they're launched and they're out there to the world. So it's available to all of the companies coming in early 26. That's what we really want. We want educators to have the standards and be able to use them in schools and help kids learn about digital literacy and digital well-being. So we've developed a toolkit that will be released when the standards are launched. And that will help guide them and inform them and give them information on how they can talk to young people about online safety. We have tools for young people. We have tools for parents, for them as well. We're also building out, with your help and support and real guidance, information and guidance for advertisers, because we want advertisers, as they look at these platforms and make decisions on which platforms they want to support and where they want their ads to be placed and how they want them to be placed, and what conversations they should be having with these tech companies about the importance of online safety. However, at the same time, we've also heard from not only some advertisers, but some other industries. For example, the toy industry. The toy industry, which has in some ways gone digital as well, has expressed interest in this. Other industries are saying maybe these set of standards around safety can be applied and modified. So when we think of the advertising industry, we say to them, should they have policies around online safety, around mental health and well-being? Because right now, we know that most of them don't think about that. They don't have that as part of their rubric. And what they do with their companies when they go talk to their brands about this. So we hope that these standards inform many of the industries and that they all adopt this. They all take this on for their own industry and use it as a guide, as a tool, and as a resource. It isn't the end-all be-all. It isn't everything. But it is a really great baseline for many industries. We're even thinking about using this within the healthcare industry. So how can doctors, primary care doctors and nurses use the standards to talk to patients, kids, about their online use? How can they assess for online use and issues when kids come into hospitals with mental health issues? So we want the standards to inform lots of industries in that way.
Amazing. It sounds, you've answered some of my last question, but if there was one principle from the Safe Online Standards that you would hope that people would take seriously when it comes to protecting young people, when it comes to protecting youth mental health, what would it be? What would be, your one wish?
I think my one wish, actually, it's a really good question. It's not an easy question to answer. I think my one wish would be is for everybody to think first. Think first before you do something, whether that's a kid that's posting something or looking at something or how they're using these platforms, to parents when they purchase the phones. Think about this and think about what you're going to do, what conversations you're going to have with your kids around how they use this and how you're going to set privacy settings and default settings. To advertisers, I want them to think first before they just say, this platform has lots of exposure to many people that are my customer base, and that provides a great opportunity for me. But if it's not really a healthy place, think about that first. So for me, it's really that think first. We all, you said it earlier, we all have a role to play in this, and we all have some level of responsibility in ensuring that our lives that are now lived out online are as safe as possible. They're never going to be 100% safe. You're driving in a car, you might have your seatbelt on, it might not be entirely safe because your phone might ring or the radio might be too loud or there might be too many people talking, or all of those things might be perfectly safe and quiet and perfect, and somebody comes and something happens to their car and a tire flies up. Nothing is 100% safe. Technology's platforms aren't either. This is where it comes back to us to think first. Be mindful as you're engaging and using these, no matter what frame of mind you're coming at this with. Advertiser, agency, parent, healthcare provider, user. Think first would be probably my main thing.
I think that's an amazing takeaway. Thank you, Dr. Dan, and thank you for taking the time this morning to sit down with us. We're really looking forward to you announcing the launch of SOS. And again, just thank you for all that you do. You all have been a fantastic partner to us.
Thank you. We could not have gotten to this place without you and all the work of the Channel Factory, your expertise, your advice, your guidance, your resources, and your knowledge has been just phenomenal at helping us really improve what these standards are and how they can really help the public and advertisers.
Beautiful. Thank you.